All right. Well, welcome everyone to our Housing and Economic Development Commission meeting for Thursday, January 21st. It is 6 o'clock and we have a full house as far as commissioners go. So we have quorum and I am going to call this meeting to order at 6:01. With that, we'll do a roll call. Cool thing with Zoom, most everyone has their name here except for user. Mr. Dennis, we'll have to call your name out by verbally. So let's start with Dennis. Just let people know your full name and that you're here. And unmute.
Okay,
There you go.
Dennis Unger, and I'm here.
Daryl.
I am here.
This is sort of odd to do roll call when everyone can see the faces and the names, but we'll do it for requirements. Bao.
Present.
And Sarah.
I'm here.
And Sarah, it's Birdash for your last name. So
Yeah.
when all of the people watching our meeting want to see you in the agenda, they can find you. Enjoy.
I'm here.
All right. So we have a full quorum. We will move on to approval of agenda. So does anyone have any items they want to add or discuss? Oh, looks good. Okay, with that, I will look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Tuchuk. And then I would look for a second.
I second.
And I will recognize Mr. Unger for the second.
Actually, it was Daryl.
I saw Dennis first.
Oh, did we both say? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, you both did.
Oh, that's good.
Yep. Don't worry, there's other items, Daryl. We won't leave you out.
I'm good.
Just be slower, Dennis, okay? All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. With that, any additional discussions on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the agenda passes ayes all. We'll move on to approval of the minutes from the October 15th meeting. And looks like everyone but Mr. Unger was here. So I will, first of all, any items that people want to call out? Does it look good to everyone? All right, I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from our October, no, that's today? No, October 15th meeting.
Yep, sounds good. So motion from Commissioner Chuck. Commissioner Henshin, any seconds?
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the minutes. Any other discussion? Joy.
I did have a question as to, is there a business engagement meeting or program scheduled for 2021 yet? I mean, usually we cover 2020 sometime right around now, isn't it, Mark?
So I know it's an agenda item.
Oh.
For, let me pull it up. It is item 6A.
Oh, okay.
So we can dig deeper into it on that one unless there was something separate.
Nope.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? And recognizing Dennis's abstention. Okay, the motion passes in the eyes of the chair. We will move on to new business. So we'll go ahead for item 5A. Jeff, do you want to kick us off on that one?
Certainly, Chair and Commissioners. So according to your rules of procedure that are adopted by HEDC, at the first meeting of the year in January is when HEDC elects among its membership, both its chair and its vice chair for the next year, so serving in 2021. So yeah, there are two officer positions on the Housing Commission, Housing Economic Development Commission, the chair and vice chair, whose duties are outlined in your rules of procedure. And so we are just looking for separate motions, one motion to elect the chair for 2021 and a second motion to elect the vice chair for 2021.
I'd like to kick off a motion to nominate Mark Jenkins for the chair position for 2021.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Tkachuk. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And we have a second from Commissioner Henshin. Okay, are there any other nominations? And by the way, you can self-nominate. Okay, volunteers. Okay, going once, twice. Okay, seeing no other nominations. And I will accept the nomination, but I will tell everyone, again, I will be happy to support anyone if they want to chair this commission in the future. So you have a year to think about it, especially the newer folks. But I'll accept the nomination. So with that, we've got a motion. We have a second. All those in favor of electing Mark Jenkins, chair of the Housing and Economic Development Commission for the year of 2021, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And abstentions? It's awkward to say, but in the eyes of the chair, Mark Jenkins has been elected chair of the commission again for 2021. We now will move on to the vice chair. Do we have nominations for vice chair?
I motion to nominate Dennis Unger for vice chair.
So Commissioner Tkachuk motions for Commissioner Unger for vice chair. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second from Commissioner Henshin. And we can see Joy's joy in that. Are there any other nominations, self or otherwise? Commissioner Unger, you're not going to nominate competition for you here?
Joy beat me to it.
Well, you know, Dennis, you've been hanging in for a long time, so I think it's well deserved.
I'm gonna have one heck of an inaugural party too.
Yeah. All right. So we have a motion and a second. I will look for other nominations going once, twice, three times. Okay. So all those in favor of Commissioner Unger serving as vice chair for 2021 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, congratulations, Vice Chair Unger. Commissioner Unger has been elected as the Vice Chair of the Housing and Economic Development Commission for 2021. With that, we will move on to item 5B, resolution of appreciation for Dennis Dupuy. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Dennis Dupuis' term on the HEDC was up at the end of last year, end of 2020, and he did decide not to seek reappointment to the commission. Mostly his email just noted that he had started an executive MBA program and had a young child, and just with his time constraints, had decided to step down for now for his role on the Housing and Economic Development Commission. And so included in your packet is a resolution of appreciation recognizing Dennis for his 3 years of service on the Housing and Economic Development Commission starting in 2017. Just noting his gave freely of his time and energy. Actually, I know he served also on the North End Vision Plan Task Force and was very active in that planning effort. And so we recommend that you adopt this resolution of appreciation. And if so, we will bring it to the council at their next meeting on February 8th for the council to consider adoption of that resolution as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments? I mean, I'll kick off. Dennis was with us for, gosh, almost 4 years, started in 2017. And, you know, for Dennis, hey, thanks for sitting with us and helping us drive some pretty important issues over those 3 years too, with the council. And for everyone else watching, hey, you know, this isn't just, you know, 2 or 3 hours once a quarter. Sometimes, not today, but sometimes these packets can get pretty thick. And it's a great way to get involved in what happens in your city. Don't ever sit back and say you don't have a voice. We have an opening on our commission if you want a voice. But no, thank you for Dennis for all that you did for the city through our commission and for us as commissioners. With that, I will look for a motion to approve the resolution of appreciation.
I motion to adopt the resolution of appreciation for Dennis Dupuis.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Chuck. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And that was Commissioner Unger. With a motion and a second, any other discussion? Hearing none, I will look all of those in favor of approving the resolution of appreciation signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the resolution passes ayes all. Thank you again, Dennis, for all you did for us and for the city. We really do appreciate it. And I'll look forward to this getting presented at City Council. All right, we'll move on to item 5C, Rules of Procedure Annual Review. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. This is really a housekeeping item for the Commission. You have some rules of procedure, which really function as the Commission's bylaws, kind of outlining your meetings, your meeting schedule, roles of your officers, your agenda format and ordering, as well as kind of the duties of the chair and vice chair. And so actually, as the background, these were initially adopted in 2013, and then 2 years ago in January of 2019, there was actually a rewrite and a number of amendments that were changed and tweaked in the rules at that time. One of which was the last section, which calls for them to be reviewed annually by the Commission and then adopted each year at your first meeting. So staff has reviewed these and hasn't identified any needed amendments or changes based on the work of the Commission. And so we are recommending that you adopt the rules of procedure without any changes. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So I had a question under Part B, meetings, and it says that they shall be held at the council chambers, you know, on County Road B, unless they're canceled or unless there's other notice. Do we want to add video audio meetings, or is that something that's just for now that's happening, and then when life kind of goes back to normal, those get dropped. I mean, I have found that having the ability to do a Zoom has been really, I think it helps everyone, especially people who have really busy schedules, to be able to, continue to meet. I think it's a efficient way of meeting. I'd like to hear what others have to say, but because they're not in the rules of procedure, I didn't know how that stands.
Certainly. So Commissioner Kachuk, it's actually a really good question. We're somewhat we're quite constrained by state law and the open meeting requirements, and so the reason we are currently able to meet electronically via Zoom is because of an order the mayor was able to issue because of the health pandemic. And so we were actually just talking earlier tonight in the orientation that the open meeting law, which applies to the commission, says that the meetings need to be in person in a public location within the city. And so the only exception to that currently is because of the allowances for the global pandemic that is happening. So that's why we're doing electronic meetings, and kind of at the discretion of the mayor on how long the online meetings go. I think it's a fair question, like, how, now that this platform has been offered and been successful from the boards and commissions, and how it can be used in the future. I think there's probably more study we need to look into on what exactly, first, what would be allowed with still complying with the open meeting law. But secondly, just what can be handled from a technology standpoint. I know the council had done one hybrid meeting where some folks were in person, some were on Zoom. There's a little bit of technology issues that need to be worked through just in order that that's successful, that you can still kind of collaborate and conduct the work of the commission. So it's certainly an item that will be discussed as we move forward through the year and the pandemic plays out, and we determine kind of what the best platform is for meetings going forward. But I can't commit quite yet to what we would be able to accomplish both technology and legally.
Well, and I can see where it meeting this way and not allowing like visitors, that would kind of, be a stopping point, because there's no way that they could be at any of the meetings to voice opinion or so. But I was just wondering.
Well, I think to be clear, there could be visitors who could log into this call if they wanted to.
Oh.
I think it's just like a lot of our meetings, people just don't realize how engaging and exciting the topics are that we cover during our meetings. And so we don't get a huge audience. But it does, I think, Jeff, I think the first part is that we have the issue of state law, that it does have to be in person. So that would be part of it. But no, I'm with Joy. I think it's worth looking into. And as we do come out of this, if the city, if our lawyers see that there's some ways we can adapt some of the lessons we've learned over the last year, we can always raise this issue again and ask to modify those rules. We're required to review them today, but we can revisit them at any time. I believe that's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah. But does anyone else want to go ahead, Joy?
Well, I was just going to ask Bill's opinion, because he's on the council, and have you been meeting in person, or have you been doing some over Zoom? And how have some of your businesses been conducted?
Joy, as the mayor as an executive for an emergency order declared that all our meetings are electronic. We don't have any requirements for any personal meetings. So that's what give this an ability to pause, because she's got an executive order for that. So we don't need to rewrite any policies or anything. We'll just look at that guidance. So that's what the council's been doing. And we were going to do a hybrid, because we had, and it was really with an abundance of caution that the mayor decided that we just shouldn't do that, because some of the council members felt comfortable, some did not. And I think as the pandemic started to increase, prior to the holidays, I think she just decided it's best to do it electronically and stay that way until we felt comfortable. So no need to rewrite.
Thoughts from anyone else? No. Okay. Yeah, let's, Jeff, let's keep our eyes on it and, let us know if the mayor or the city decide to make adopt any of these things we've learned. And we can certainly visit it within our own, what do we call them, rules and of procedure as we get closer.
Certainly, Chair. This is actually, we've heard this from other commissions as well, just the added benefit of the Zoom option. So as we continue to work through it, we'll raise that as some feedback from the boards and commissions and certainly from HEDC.
Okay. Cool. I do believe that needs a vote to approve. So I will look for a vote to approve the rules of procedure. Looking for a motion.
I motion to
I'll
accept.
make that motion.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, was that Dennis, were you seconding or were you motioning?
He's motioning. I'll second.
I'll give the motion to Commissioner Unger, and then Commissioner Tuchuk gets the second. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none. All of those in favor of approving the rules of procedure, go ahead and signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, the review is approved, or I'm sorry, the rules of procedure are approved, ayes all. Okay, so we'll move on to unfinished business and go to the 2020 Business Engagement Program. Again, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. So each year for the past number of years, it's been at least 4, if not more than that, the city has partnered with the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce to do an annual engagement with our businesses. It's part of our business retention and expansion program. And HEDC is an active participant in this program. And I will say that 2020 is was the business engagement program was impacted in 2020 as a result of the pandemic. A number of things were happening. And the first of which we usually conduct these visits. We usually visit at least 20 businesses within the community. We try to hit the 5 kind of institution biggest employers and organizations within the city every year. So we're touching in with our largest businesses every year. And the other 15 we visit, we try to reach new businesses that we haven't reached before. And it's really an opportunity to sit down with them and just make a connection at the city to let them know that we're here to support them as an organization and know the services and things that we work on, but also to connect with the business to understand kind of what's happening within their organization and their business. What are some of the successes they're having? What are some of the challenges that they've been experiencing? And then certainly any discussion of resources or programs that could benefit the business and some of the issues that they're looking at. And it's been a really positive program. I know a number of the HEDC members have participated in these visits over the years. It's just that we usually leave with a pretty good feeling from the businesses that they appreciate the direct outreach that they get to make the connection, to know the faces of the commission, know the faces of folks at City Hall, and know that they can reach out for things that they, well, I didn't know I could call the city about that. We hear that quite a bit. And so we usually, those business visits occur over a number of months. And as I said, we partner with the chamber, which makes the connections with the businesses and facilitates those meetings. And they usually have occurred in spring and summer, starting kind of in the March timeframe. And it was just as we were launching this program, as you know, that the COVID pandemic happened. And there were 3 challenges. One, the St. Paul Area Chambers of Commerce, we work with kind of their business unit that they pivoted significantly into kind of connecting businesses with grants from the county and the state and the feds, and trying to do some technical assistance to the larger business community in Maplewood and elsewhere. And so their resources were taken to doing direct business support as a result of the pandemic. Certainly the city was very quickly pivoting just our operations and services to sending a lot of our staff to work remotely, and we were closing City Hall and trying to maintain our public services, moving our council meetings online, just a lot of significant changes on the city operations side. And then third, wanting to be sensitive to the business community, that, the business community was very impacted by the pandemic and was also doing kind of adapting to the new normal of the pandemic. And so in March, we kind of paused on the program and ultimately picked it back up in the fall, and started doing the business visits. We have conducted, I would say, probably 75% of them. We probably finished about 15 of those visits. We have hit, as I listed on this screen, the top 5. So kind of our institution, we've met with Maplewood Mall, we've met with the Roseville School District, Maplewood Oakdale North St. Paul District. We met with 3M, and we have also met with St. John's Hospital. And then we have met with a number of small businesses. A lot have been over on the west side of town as part of the Rice Larpenter work. Like La Delicious Bakery we've met with, Asian Fusion Grill, chiropractor, a number of businesses we've met on kind of the Rice Street corridor on the west side of town. Then during the holidays, we didn't schedule any of the additional business visits, the remaining kind of 5 visits during the holidays. And so the St. Paul Area Chamber is working on scheduling kind of those last visits of 2020 here in the very early part of 2021. So the program has been delayed. It's taken longer as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so just want to give you an update that those remaining business visits will happen. I know at our last meeting, the commission had a couple interests. One, the one that I remember most was that you wanted to do a bit of a look back over the years of the business engagement and do kind of a trend analysis. Like, what things are we not only hearing as trends within this year's visits, but what trends have we seen over the past years of visits? So we'll certainly work on that as we wrap up the report for the 2020 business outreach. In terms of the engagement event, I'll touch a little bit about this later in the agenda as part of the State of the City, but we've had to adapt that as well. Obviously, doing an in-person business engagement networking event is not possible during the pandemic, so we did not do a fall business engagement event because of the pandemic, but we are going to retool and reshape the State of the City and do a virtual State of the City event where we'll be able to highlight some of the work we've been doing around business development and economic development in Maplewood, and touching on some of this business outreach. So this is really just an update to know that it's still on our radar. We'll be wrapping it up here shortly, and we will still provide the report with the report of this year's, as well as those trends we talked about. My goal is at your April meeting, we can have the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce attend your April quarterly meeting of HEDC to present that report and talk about some of those findings. So that's where we're at with that program. And then we can talk at our April meeting what maybe the 2021 program should look like, and what the commission's thoughts on that are. So not requesting any action on this. I just know this is a main item that HEDC works on every year, and just wanted to give you an update on what's happening. So with that, Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Any questions?
No, I just want to comment to say to Jeff, and if you can pass it on to the St. Paul Area Chamber, that they do a great job with scheduling and organizing to get these meetings going, and it's really a great touch point to talk to. I went to mostly small businesses, and that was great, and just to hear their concerns and their optimism is like wonderful, and just to get background. And so I highly recommend anyone, like for 2021, if they have time in getting it fit into their schedule, to go to any of the visits. I did attend a couple of the virtual ones, and it was different, but it's really good feedback and to hear, some of the concerns and challenges that some of, especially the larger school districts and things like that are having. Thank you. It's a great program.
Yeah, and for our newer commission members, if you have a chance to engage with any of these business visits, it is it's just a wonderful experience. Even when I've been on visits where the business had issues, it's always handled, graciously. I've never had a bad visit. And, over the years, we've had the opportunity to help solve some problems quickly. And always they walk away from it going, wow, the city cares. The city's asking how are things going. And they couldn't be happier to have our ear for a little bit and oftentimes tell us how great everything is. And if you've been on enough of them, you might start to get a little tired of how great our public safety departments are, because I think, 1 in 10 visits doesn't mention how great the police have been or fire have been. So shout out to public safety. You are annoyingly wonderful with all of our businesses. So yeah, Sarah, Bao, you have an opportunity to get in on one. And don't worry, they may ask you to ask some questions. You can defer those over to the city council member or staff, maybe on the first 1 or 2, and then enjoy the conversation, because they're good conversations to have.
And Bill loves to talk about St. John's Hospital, let me tell you.
Well, not that he knows anything about
Yeah.
it. And Bill's muted, so.
Oh, that's why it's been so quiet. I was
And he's
wondering.
still muted.
Oh, no, I was saying, yeah, I did a virtual meeting there with the chamber a few weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago or so. Very good discussion. And then I want to just comment too, is there's so many connections that you have. Now, for instance, I was on a Roseville School District quarterly meeting yesterday, and we had legislators and school board members, and it's just a fascinating discussion with all the connections you can make. Schools are critical to communities, and you just learn a lot, and it's really good to liaison. And I won't, the Planning Commission and the Design Review has a project that St. John's is going to bring forward with the cath lab. Pretty exciting stuff. So that'll start to transpire. So what's going to happen at St. John's, I'm guessing, is many of the services that were at St. Joe's are going to transfer to St. John's, including a lot of cardiology. So look forward to a very robust hospital. So,
Yeah, what do you think about all that new signage there?
well, I can't. I'm doing some other work private with Fairview now, so I'll just stay quiet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the safe thing to do.
All right. Any other thoughts or comments on the business outreach? All right. Well, with that then, Mr. Thompson, we would open it up to visitor presentations. I think I see everyone who's in the room, and I don't see anyone other than us. So I'll just listen for a second if there is a visitor hiding in the shadows somewhere. Not hearing a visitor, we will skip that. Next item is commission presentations. For Sarah and Bao, this is normally might be some place where you would at the beginning of the meeting say, I'd like to talk about X, Y, Z, and we would add that to the commission presentations. And then we'll move on to staff presentations. So Mr. Thompson, give us the update on state of the city.
Sure, give me 1 minute here. Gonna hot off the presses right from our communication staff about a half hour before this meeting started. I have the flyer. Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay, so as I indicated earlier, so typically the State of the City event is held in January. It's in person. It's always very well attended. It's done during the lunch hour. It's a number of things have happened. There's always been a lunch, so there's a networking opportunity. The mayor always presents her kind of state of the year and updates on what the council and city have been working on. And then there's been in the past kind of keynote speeches as well. Last year was the superintendent of Osario of Maplewood, the school district. And so it's always been great at the community center, but recognizing again, the format will need to change this year. We are going to pivot to a virtual State of the City event, and that will be held on February 18th at 10 a.m. So it will still be a live event to attend in person. Our council will be there as well as the mayor presenting her address. One of the things we talked about with the mayor in planning for the State of the City was typically one of the other things that's done is the business awards. So HEDC is each year does your business awards. And I know we talked about this at your last meeting, but as we talked to the mayor, she was, I think we thought that in the year that was 2020, we thought it was best to really highlight the entire business community. So rather than pulling out individual businesses and giving them awards for individual business work, we really wanted to focus on the larger accomplishments of the business community in the challenges they've experienced in 2020. So the event is really going to be framed rather than doing those business awards around celebrating all the work our businesses have successfully done in 2020. And so that will be it there. And then at the end of it, there will be, it says right on it, a Q&A with the mayor. So members of the business community can also directly engage in any sort of questions they have about the work that the city has been doing. Our communication, we'll communicate this out through our normal channels, all of our business listservs that we have. We'll get it out to the St. Paul area chamber, the White Bear area chamber. And then one of the things we're going to add on this year is try to get out to our resident community. We have Emily Burt McGregor in the police department has been working in direct community outreach to our renters in town, as well as our Multicultural Advisory Commission has been working with our diverse communities to try to increase their knowledge of this event and to increase their participation and attendance at it. So that's kind of where our increase in communication on the event details will happen this year. Again, in trying to still, because our business community is always well represented here. They've always participated and attended in good numbers. So that's, mark your calendars. All of you are welcome to attend and encouraged to attend the event on the 18th. If you're not able, you have a conflict, it will be recorded and available on the city's website afterwards. So that is my update on the 2021 virtual State of the City event in February.
So Jeff, about how long do they expect the event to go?
It'll be shorter. It'll be condensed version this year. It'll be an hour. It'll be in under an hour.
Okay.
And we will be highlighting some of the development projects that have happened and under construction and in the works in Maplewood, again to highlight the amount of investment that's happened in Maplewood in 2020.
Cool. Is there where we can find? Is there a Zoom meeting posted yet, or?
I haven't seen the link come out yet, but once we do see it, I can get that off to the full commission.
Yeah, if you can get that to the commission, and then just where we can direct businesses and citizens where to find it as well. I'll presume the page on the website probably at some point.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So that's my only update on that. So then the other thing I wanted to do is just go through a development update, and let me switch screens here quickly. Okay, so just want to give you an update from development activity that's happened since your meeting in October. First, want to just highlight some of the city-owned properties that we are actively working on. The first is the former London Lane Fire Station down in South Maplewood off of Lower Afton Road. So when the new South Fire Station was built. This is no longer being used as a fire station. It's been on the market for some time, and we re-guided it in our new comprehensive plan to high density residential. You may recall the city actually had a purchase agreement signed for a housing developer that was in 2020. It was looking at a market rate of housing project on this site. And ultimately, because of some financing and concerns they had about the financial markets and the pandemic, they did walk away from it. And so we have been talking to 2 other housing developers, and we actually have, the council has reviewed offers for 2 separate offers for purchase of this property, both for housing projects, for high density housing projects. And so we'll be bringing that back to the council, a purchase agreement or letter of intent, probably here in early 2021 for their consideration, but know that there is significant interest in a housing development on this site, and we're working with those developers to get that land sold. It's a high priority for the council because the proceeds from this land sale are being used to help finance the construction of the new fire station at Hazelwood and County Road C. So the project you'll be seeing in 2021 is the construction of that new fire station, and so we're working hard to get this land sold. And then just an update on some of the city's land over in the Gladstone neighborhood. So this is kind of the overview of the Frost and English neighborhood. So as you probably know, the city has taken an active land acquisition strategy in this neighborhood. The planning efforts for redevelopment and investment in this area date back to the early to mid 2000s. And so the city's actually owned land previously, but also actively acquired land, and then to reposition it for development. On this map, the kind of the red orangey color on this map show the parcels of land that are currently owned by the city. So there's on the west, there's the land adjacent to the Savannah, that's adjacent to the Maplewood Marine. And then on the northeast intersection of Frost and English is the former Moose Lodge property. Directly east of that is the current Gladstone Fire Station, which once the new one is built, they will move that operation up to the new fire station. So that land will be available for sale. And then the other ones, videos are over it, they're gonna move. It's the Gladstone House. So right at Clarence Street, between Clarence and Ide on Frost, the old Gladstone House. We actually own property on the north side and on the south side. And we actually have an interested housing developer to purchase that Gladstone House property, potentially do the land swap with the Philippine Center on the south side, and do a housing project on the north side of Frost Avenue there. And so it'd be a Minnesota Housing Tax Credit application project. And so we're working through some of the financing options on that site, and look again to have to the council and EDA approval of either a term sheet or purchase agreement in the first part of 2021. So good that despite the pandemic, we actually had a record year of construction in Maplewood. There's $140 million in construction value constructed last year in Maplewood, which is twice the value from 2019. We're still seeing strong interest in housing projects throughout Maplewood, despite some of the economic slowdown concerns about development. So as these projects move forward, they may or may not request tax increment assistance from the city. We'll keep you updated on that and bring forward any sort of projects that require your review and approval as they kind of get shepherded forward.
So Jeff, I had a quick question. As long as we're talking about housing and the building and things, I've noticed that have there been quite a few sales of just regular single family housing? Have you seen a spike in that at all in the Maplewood area? I've just noticed like 4 houses in our neighborhood that are up for sale, and I didn't know if it was part of, some of it. I know people have passed away. 2 of them were people had passed away, and they had been sitting vacant. And at one of our meetings, we had talked about, the city knowing where these houses were and then trying to get interest in them from developers and things like that. But has there been like a more aggressiveness from Maplewood as far as, you know, the housing turnover?
Chair and Commissioners, so I haven't seen so typically the St. Paul area realtors does like a quarterly market update to all the cities in the St. Paul area. And I haven't seen their fourth quarter of 2020 update yet. So I can't speak specifically to like end of the year market conditions for housing. But I know as through the third quarter of last year, the number of active listings and time on market was fairly consistent in 20 as it was in 19. So there wasn't at least in that, again, through October, through September, weren't seeing increased inventory or leg on time on market. So, but I haven't, as I said, I haven't seen the fourth quarter market update yet from St. Paul area realtors. If I see that, I can certainly send it along.
Thank you.
Okay, then to give you an update on the ponds at Battle Creek project. So Ramsey County in 2019, as part of their biennium budget, made the decision to close the ponds at Battle Creek Golf Course at the end of the 2020 golf season. And that continues to be the county's direction and decision, is that though successful in 2020, they're not currently planning on reopening the Ponds Golf Course in 2021. And they have indicated an interest is that the county is going to cease the golf operation, and they are interested in selling the land. They have not said for what, have not identified the specific goals for what they'd sell, and they've said that selling to another golf operator is not off the table, and so it's certainly an option. But in 2020, we did sign a joint powers or a collaboration agreement to work with the county on a visioning plan for not only the ponds property, which is the parcel in B, which is an 88 acres at the southwest corner of Afton Road and Century, but the also some kind of vacant land north of the correctional facility, 77 acres that's highlighted in the parcel A boundaries. So we 3 phases. We're working with Perkins and Will, so it's a partnership with the county and the city, hiring Perkins and Will to conduct that community engagement and visioning. There are 3 phases to that. We are still in phase 1 of that, around analysis and visioning. The first community meeting was held in November of last year. It was very well attended. It was virtual, so it was actually on Teams, and then we used another platform to pivot to. And I think at one time there were like 120 people logged in and actively participating in that meeting. So, we kind of had concerns about going in, like, were we going to see a drop off in participation by not doing what we typically do, which is an in-person engagement. But we may have found that we not only got just as good attendance, but maybe better attendance at that because of the platform thing that came up earlier at the meeting. So the meeting went well in terms of the platform and engagement. Very strong attendance from the immediate area, and a lot of feedback about preservation of the site as a golf course, frankly, but also recognizing the benefits of it as parks and open space. And that was the predominant feedback we heard at that community meeting, was keeping it as parks and open space, if not keeping it as a golf course. And so we've done additional stakeholder engagement. I know, Mark, you participated in a stakeholder meeting. So we're just been doing kind of small group meetings with some stakeholder groups, and we'll go back to the community next Wednesday on the 27th, from 4 to 6. I didn't put the time on there. So from 4 to 6 p.m. it'll be virtual again. We'll do another community-wide meeting. And I just put the draft agenda on what will be happening out there. So we'll just do the welcome. And then this time we thought it was important to have the county outline kind of some of their goals and values for repositioning these sites. It hasn't been clear from the beginning, and we think there's a strong benefit in being transparent about that to the neighborhood of what the county would like to see happen out there, or what some of their goals are that they would like to see happen out there. We'll summarize the engagement from the first meeting as well as the stakeholders. And then we'll do some interactive things around what I'll call kind of prioritization. So we'll certainly have kind of parks and recreation and open space options. And so, what are the priorities for some of the recreational uses out there? Is it golf? Is it golf? Is it a golf course? Is it driving range? Is it walking paths? Is it open space? Is it, water ecology? Is it other types of recreational amenities? Prioritization of that, and then incorporating in potentially some development scenarios as well. So recognizing there could be a balance of trying to prioritize what of those uses the community would like to see out there. So that will be happening, as I mentioned, on the 27th. You are all welcome and encouraged to participate if you are available and interested in that, because there's it's quite a bit of land, and certainly could be some direct impacts on Maplewood.
What is the current zoning of that G parcel?
So the B parcel is guided for parks and open space, and the A parcel is guided for institutional. So any sort of change from that, if there's any change from parks on the south and institutional on the north, would require an amendment to our comp plan. Then just wanted to do an update on some of our transit projects. So the Gold Line, our first transitway project in Maplewood, will be the Metro Gold Line. This is the bus rapid transit line. So it is buses, not light rail, but it's largely in dedicated lanes. So it kind of operates within its own fixed guideway and there are parts where it's operating in mixed traffic, but is kind of in its own road, following kind of paralleling the 94 corridor from St. Paul out to Woodbury, with one station in Maplewood directly adjacent to 3M. The design is 60% complete, so they have continued to move forward with the design of that. They're through 60% of the design. The FONSI was issued, which I know is big. That's the finding of no significant impact, which is the culmination of the environmental review, which is one of the most comprehensive reviews that's done is on the environmental impacts. And so the findings of no significant impact was issued in 2020. You may have seen the recent news article in the news that there have been some changes. And so they're working with the Federal Transit Authority, which provides some of the matching funding for this project. And in order to be more competitive on the ridership models for the Federal Transit Authority, they've increased some of the park and ride capacities on the east side. So there is no park and ride facility at the Maplewood site, but at the Washington County Government Center site and the Woodbury Theater site, increasing the number of parking stalls available for park and ride along the line. So that continues to move forward. It's still planning to start construction in 2022, and that would make it operational in 2024. So that's the update on Gold Line.
Hey, Jeff, I got a question back on Gold Line. I haven't been following it as closely since I was off of the Gateway Commission, but I've heard that part of the design for the 3M station, will it include the walkway over to Battle Creek? Or is that going to be separate from the station design?
You mean the overpass walkway over 94?
Correct.
That is not included as a project cost. And so it's not included in the project construction.
Are you aware if they're still moving forward with that though?
They being the Gold Line?
Well, I guess in that case, it's a combination of 3M and Maplewood.
Sure.
Because some of that development's on 3M property, but if you're crossing 94, or is it Ramsey County? Because the highway's federal and the park is
Sure.
county.
Sure.
How is that flowing? What do you know? Any updates?
What I know is 3M did have some concerns about it, and with some concerns about that new overpass. I it's been a while since I've looked at it. I think it had a quite significant price tag on it. I want to say in the $8 million range. So it was not an
Sounds about right. Yeah.
was not, to be cost competitive, the county and now Metro Transit, who's leading the effort. That's why they didn't include it as a project cost, just because of the cost competitiveness factor. And I don't know of any active work on finding the funding to finance that in the near future.
Okay, so it is separate from the gold line now, and if it were to happen, it would be something new, something that we haven't heard about yet.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So Mark, having said that, what's the downside of not having that overpass?
I think the interest was, my understanding, and this is more hearsay from people who are on the commission today and so forth, is there was interest from the 3M employees to get an overpass over to Battle Creek Park so they could go there for lunches. They could go running in the park during breaks and lunches. And they were looking at the station design as an opportunity to do that. Part of the reasoning was that may also bring more ridership from south of 94 to the station, because they would have a pedestrian friendly way to cross 94. Walking on Century is not necessarily pedestrian friendly. The sidewalks are okay, but you've got both 94 to cross as well as Century in order to get across there. There was a movement to try to get that as part of the Gold Line package. And in all honesty, while there's some aspirational ideas there, it makes sense that it was a very expensive, nice to have, not what I would consider critical to the success of the station.
Okay, so it's not something that's restricting a certain group of people from being able to access that transportation.
There are residents in what, I don't even know if you would know, Jeff, maybe 80 houses or so in that neighborhood that would have two options to cross 94, either go over to Century and across, or this potential land bridge. But I wouldn't call it prohibitive or a block to their access to the station. It's just not as pretty access to that station.
And there will be in the project some improvements to the sidewalks under 94 on the Century Avenue crossing. So I agree, it's not nearly as nice as a dedicated pedestrian overpass over the freeway, but there will be some pedestrian enhancements along the Century Avenue side.
Nice.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other transitway project in Maplewood is the Rush Line, which is intended to be the Purple Line, planned for the Purple Line as part of the Metro network. Continues along as well. I kind of joke that we get confused between the two projects at times, because this is like one step behind the Gold Line project in terms of the federal transit planning process. But some recent of note things is last year, the Maplewood, our council passed a resolution of support, as did all the communities along the Rush Line. So just acknowledging the strong community support for the investment in this transitway. This project is at the environmental review process, so they're still working through the environmental documentation and analysis. Slated to happen this year, they actually received some grant money from the project team, did receive some grant money to do some station area work along the corridor. Some station area planning, I should say, not some station work, station area planning. So which is not the station itself, but the development and land use around those station areas. Maplewood has really already done that effort. So with the north end, with the two stops in the north end at the St. John's Hospital and Maplewood Mall, as well as the one at Gladstone, we've really done our station area planning in advance of this. So we're supportive of it, and maybe there's some other opportunities we can do around housing analysis and more fine grain work around our stations. But the other communities that haven't done as much of the pre-planning work for development will start to undertake that in 2021. And then this is 2 years behind. So this will start construction in 2024 and operation in 2026. The other, and those are both transit ways. So those, and this one will also be, as you know, sharing the Bento Trail corridor for much of its length, certainly through the Maplewood side. And these are dedicated transit ways. So as I said, these, are largely within their own guideways. This is some new planning work that maybe isn't as well known to the commission, is that Metro Transit has also been working on its other network planning. So it's non-transit way network. And if you're familiar with the A line in St. Paul and Roseville, that's the line that runs along Snelling Avenue to Rosedale Mall and then south through the city of St. Paul. Now there's the C line, which is the Penn Avenue line in the Northwest Metro. These are they're bus rapid transit lines, but they're not in dedicated guideways, so they still operate along the roadways in mixed traffic. But they have much greater enhancements to the standard bus network, so more frequent service. They have enhanced amenities, so they have platforms at all the station areas. They have real-time signage. They have you pay your fare before you get on the bus. What else is there? There's better, there's Wi-Fi in the buses. There's just a better, and there's prioritization. So like they can have signal prioritization at the intersections to give a priority over other traffic. And so it decreases travel time, increases ridership on all the corridors they've implemented at. It's been a really strong performing transit system. Anyway, they have the A, so I had to write it down. The A and C are operation. The B line, the D and E line are currently in planning, and they're currently looking to establish the next 3 corridors for implementation in 2025 through 2030. So these would be the F, G, and H line. And there are 4 corridors that are being considered for the 3 selections. They are the Lyndale-Johnson, which is you can maybe see my cursor. This is the Lyndale-Johnson line through Minneapolis. This is the Central Avenue line. I'm sorry, this is Lyndale-Johnson. This is Central. Mix them up. This is Como, Maryland, which would run east-west between Minneapolis and St. Paul. And then there is one line that would be in Maplewood, or have portions of it with Maplewood. And this is the Rice-Roberts line. So it would be from downtown St. Paul, would go south along Roberts Street and north along Rice Street, and would hit kind of the Rice-Larpenter neighborhood and the north, the Rice Street corridor, all the way up into Little Canada. I will tell you, there is strong support for this line as part of the Rice-Larpenter Alliance work. So our partnership there has got very strong support for this. So much support for it that it actually didn't score quite as high as some of the other corridors in this analysis, but that strong community support has really driven up the priority that Metro Transit has put on this. So there's actually currently a community survey out on Metro Transit's website for people to fill out to kind of help them select these next 3 corridors to be implemented. And it would be a pretty enhanced transit service, which when we've met with a lot of those businesses out there, we've heard about workforce challenges, access to employees. Certainly there are demographics in that neighborhood, which would be strong riders of transit. There's households that don't have cars in that area. So it's a very strong neighborhood that could benefit from increased transit service. And so we've been advocating for it as we've talked to some of the Metro Transit staff, but know that that's in the works as part of their network planning. And then the last project I wanted to highlight came up very quickly. This is probably something that in normal...
I'm sorry, Jeff?
Yeah.
Just real quick, I was muted. If you go back one step, just how close does the Maryland Como get to Maplewood at the 90, where it seems to come up close to 94 and western edge of the south leg?
This eastern terminus is Sunray Center.
Okay, so a few blocks.
Close, but not in it.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Thanks.
Yep.
Can I ask a question about this? So like a lot of the analysis for these projects have been years in the making. And then COVID has clearly thrown a wrench into like a lot of things. So has there been any like COVID analysis on you know, the assumptions that they made about how many riders might be like workforce people trying to get down to St. Paul. Well, I work in St. Paul. Nobody works in St. Paul anymore. Like, you know, like where COVID kind of changed a lot of rules. And so I'm just wondering if there's been any like reevaluation on whether or not some of those are like as like how much COVID might have changed those. Because like there's a lot of businesses like Target or like a lot of our other big businesses where we're not going to be going back in. Or like I know some friends that work at like a big hospital and they like cut their whole like nobody ever has to go in. They just said like indefinitely. So I'm just wondering, has anybody like kind of rerun the numbers with some maybe current assumptions on like, you know, if you thought this many workers were going to go use that line, like how many might be using it now in a, yeah. And I guess those would still be assumptions too, but yeah, wondering if anyone's thought of that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would say yes. There's certainly been some recognition of the impacts of the pandemic on transit ridership as part of this. How these corridors were initially selected was Metro Transit looked at their highest ridership corridors today, and so this is based on existing ridership data. These are, you know, it's not necessarily, whereas some of the transitway planning is focused on new transit service to areas that aren't well served by transit today. This is actually an enhancement of existing service. So trying to kind of enhance existing network. So there's a distinguish between that planning. Interestingly, I know Metro Transit has said that their A-line ridership, so that's the Snelling Avenue line, has seen their ridership system-wide is down. I mean, that's not a surprise. Their ridership is significantly down. But the A-line is actually down less, so it's actually performing better than their other lines. And so they've found a lot of success in these arterial BRT lines. And part of the discussion is about, you know, there's a pretty significant distinction that Metro Transit makes between kind of the transit choice population, like those that ride transit as kind of just a decision to do that, and the transit dependent populations. And the transit dependent populations are still from an equity standpoint really needing that transit service just to do, you know, just daily activities as well as getting to work, because some of those folks are in positions where they're still in employment situations where they're still going to the office. So yes, there's impact. There's been analysis, but they're pretty confident that the populations they're serving in these network enhancements would be focused on those that are dependent on transit.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah. Any other questions on Network Next? And then the last item I wanted to touch on, I know Bill's familiar with this. This came up very quickly to the city. And so we were, I don't want to say scrambling, but we were working very quickly with AE on the purchase of some existing housing in Maplewood. It's probably something we would normally bring to Head C for you to weigh in and to provide some feedback on, but because of the constrained timeframes, we were condensed to get it before the council as quickly as possible. And the reason is, and what it is you've maybe read some news articles in the past years about what's called naturally occurring affordable housing. And so this is housing it's you know, from a broader perspective, it's usually built in the 60s, early 70s. It's not income restricted at all today. So just given the finishes and the size of the units and the age of the units, the rents that are charged in the market actually meet the definitions of affordable housing units. And what's happening is these are oftentimes owned by smaller families or family entities, and they're now, the market is so hot for housing in the Twin Cities Metro that when these are coming on the market, they're being sold, and when they come on the market, we're getting kind of East Coast, West Coast investment companies that are very interested in investing in housing in the Twin Cities market because they see it as a good investment. And they're picking up a lot of these properties, they're making kind of modest improvements, and they're increasing rents significantly. And so there's been projects in Richfield that have been high profile, St. Louis Park. It's resulted in displacement of not only the loss of affordable housing, but the displacement of tenants. And so AEON is a nonprofit housing, affordable housing developer and operator here in the Metro, and they've been probably the leader in actively working in trying to acquire these projects. So when they come on the market, it happens very quickly, and they try to get them under a purchase agreement to buy them and make improvements in them, investments, but keep them as affordable housing units without that displacement. And so this came on the market. Nobody was aware it was going to come on the market. There were outside groups looking to purchase it, and AEON made an offer. It was accepted, but there was some gap financing because of maintaining its affordability. They didn't have the pro forma that the market rate folks would have. Sorry. And so they identified a $500,000 financing gap, which corresponded with some of the capital improvements that they needed to make. So they reached out to us, and we connected with Ramsey County to partner with AEON and Ramsey County on some financing. So Ramsey County was able to provide $400,000 from their home funding program. And then from the city, we have some TIF pooling dollars available. So from some of our existing tax increment housing districts that have performed better than we had initially projected, particularly the carefree cottages, there's actually some excess tax increment available it can only be used for affordable housing purposes. And so it's some existing cash we were able to tap into for a $100,000 deferred loan to AEON to help in that acquisition. As long as they meet the terms, the loan would be forgiven at the end. I think it's a 15 or 20-year term on that loan. But with our 100,000 and the county's 400,000, they were able to close that gap. They did close on the acquisition, and those units will be preserved. And they are now have a deed restriction that they have to remain affordability for the term of the loan. So it was a really cool project for Maplewood to partner with the county and AEON to preserve those existing units out there. And it's a pretty good example of not only the partnership side, but some of the tools we do have that are available to us to help partner on some of these affordable housing projects. That we do have some funds in our tax increment pooling dollars to help new projects. But preservation, it's a lot cheaper to preserve our existing units than it is to build new units. And we think this is a good success story to share with you. So want to let you know that's it happened quickly. The deal closed within about 45 days and is done now and in place.
Bravo. I mean, can you imagine where the residents of that current apartment system would go if they all of a sudden found out that their rent was going to increase by, $500 a month? I mean, I think this is a great use of, what Maplewood can do and partner, with Ramsey County. So great job. Great job.
And the other part of it that I like is there will be, and it'll be interesting to see how much, but there'll be a refresh of that property as well, right? So it's not, it won't be affordable because it was the cheapest place around. It will be affordable and will improve the quality of our housing stock at the same time.
Correct. Yeah, they're making over $500,000 in capital improvements to that site. I was pretty shocked that we gave them $100,000, and in exchange they agreed to make $500,000 in capital improvements. That's a pretty good deal, but they were going to do it, and so yeah, they will be making. They weren't, and they manage a lot of affordable housing units, so there will be improvements, and we're confident they'll be a good asset in Maplewood.
Good.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So you mentioned that the city loan came with restrictions, and I'm assuming the county home funds would also have rent income restrictions. Would any of them result in any displacement of current tenants?
I mean, no, that's not. They're strong to not wanting to displace tenants, and where their rents are at today. So that was their current rents. Their ceiling on where they can go to was, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was not significantly above what they were currently charging for rent. So there wasn't a ton of increase that they had be able to pass on to the tenants that could result in some of that displacement. So we don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
And that's, Chair, unless there are other questions on development updates, that's the meat of what I wanted to cover tonight.
Okay, any other questions or thoughts from the commission? All right. Well, with that then, I will actually, sorry, I actually have a question, come to think about it. We're, Mr. Thompson, we're still looking good for April. Do you see anything on the docket that might call for a special before that?
Chair, not that I am no, there's nothing between now and April that I'm seeing for a special meeting. I think the timing of that business engagement report and presentation before you really works well with that April meeting. So I think that timeline should work.
All right. Well, with that then, seeing no further discussion, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:16. We'll see everyone again in April, or maybe on February, whatever that date was, February 18th at the State of the City.